Welcome to the 30-minute hour. It's the personal development podcast for the seven-figure entrepreneurs looking to level up and become unstoppable. I'm your host, Eric Twiggs, your procrastination prevention partner. Joining me as always, you know him as the super CEO, the business strategist extraordinaire, and all-around good guy, Ted Fells.
Happy Monday.
It is indeed a happy Monday. And it's a really happy Monday for the person who is listening to us or watching who feels like they're stuck, right? They're trying to get their business to the next level, but they feel stuck. They're trying to go from employee to entrepreneur, but they feel stuck. They've had limiting thoughts or beliefs that they're trying to break, the bad habits they're trying to break, but they feel stuck. So today we're going to talk about the 5 habits that keep you feeling stuck. And not only that, we're going to talk about what to do about it so that you can experience that breakthrough and get yourself to that next level. So this is going to be a great day. This is going to be a breakthrough day for somebody that's watching and listening to us. But
Someone's gonna get unstuck today.
exactly, Ted. They're going to get unstuck.
That's it.
That's right. Because we have just the person to help with that. But first, people need to understand that this is not your everyday podcast.
Not Carly. It's not.
It's like Carly, we do things a little different here on the 30-minute hour. We try to mix things up and spice things up. But I have a feeling that you'll fit right in with this flow. Uh, that you're ready, and you'll probably give it to us more than we give it to you. So, but no, it'll be good. So definitely don't forget that you can listen to us on the different podcasting platforms, right? Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all those places. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. So that way you never miss an episode. And you can also watch us on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn by typing the 30-minute hour. But today we're going to talk about 5 habits that will keep you feeling stuck. And our guest, she is an international speaker and consultant who specializes and focuses on human behavior. She shares this message that regardless of one's background, occupation, or origin, every individual encounters personal and professional challenges stemming from their own perceived flaws. She emphasizes that the key to living a fulfilling life lies in how you utilize and transform these stories. That's enough right there. We'll definitely have her kind of explain the rest of what she does and how she helps people. But please join me in welcoming to the 30-minute hour, Carly Pepin.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Ted. It's really inspiring to be here today.
Yeah, this is truly an honor. I definitely want to get into this because there are a lot of people that feel stuck and feel they're trying to move. They feel like they've hit a wall. So definitely want you to help us to unpack that. But first, we want to hear your origin story. You know how it is. Every superhero has that origin story of how they got to where they are and what they do. So I am curious, like, what's your origin story? How did you get to the point where you started focusing on mindset mastery?
Yeah, absolutely. So I really started to think about it when I was just struggling with my own internal challenges. I would say the biggest one was having an eating disorder, and I kept trying to get help and assistance for it, and I wasn't getting what was necessary, or at least what I wanted. There's a lot of support out there, but everyone just kept telling me it's something I have to live with for the rest of my life, and I'm not very good at
Mm,
uh, receiving an answer like that and making that my finality. So I definitely kept searching and seeking, but hadn't quite found anything quite yet. I decided at one point too, I was having a lot of depression and anxiety, and I was living in LA at the time. And so I had made a decision to move to Australia. I thought that would solve my problems, which it did not, but it's a really beautiful country. And so when I got there and I was all by myself, I realized that all the things that I was labeling as problems or causing me the pain that I was having on the inside were actually distractions from the greater level of pain that I was in. Like everything just compounded and I felt worse than ever. It was when I found my first coach, and funny enough, it was around eating disorders. So she had written a flyer, and on that flyer, it had all of my symptoms. And then she said she was free from it. And I was like, what? I was like, how'd you do
Mm.
that? So when I connected with her, it was the first time I'd ever worked with a coach before. And she addressed it in a way that I'd never experienced before. She actually started to get me on track in regards to life purpose, what was most important to me, prioritizing my day. And it really started to not only transform my eating disorder, my depression, my anxiety. And that's when I first uncovered that, human behavior, personal development is so much more than I had ever imagined. And we can do so much more than I ever thought. And obviously, with those kind of results in such a short period of time, I was just hooked. And I asked her, I was like, sign me up. Who's your teacher? Where'd you get your certification? I want in. So
Mm.
that's when I started. Yeah.
Wow. So it sounds like hiring this coach was literally life changing for you.
100%. Yeah, it was one of the best investments that I've ever made in my entire life. Absolutely. Yeah.
Huh. So I am curious. There's an entrepreneur, someone who's watching or listening to us right now who's feeling anxiety and depression. I mean, what advice do you have for that person?
Yeah, I mean, depression's one of my favorite things to work with, and the reason why is because what we get to work with to get you to the other side of depression is quite inspiring. So depression is whenever we compare our current reality to what we wish it was, what we think it should be. And so that's a fantasy because we're wishing it's gonna be something that it's not, right? And so we're disappointed and depressed that our life isn't living up to our unrealistic expectations. The amazing thing about transforming depression is I get to go in, I get to find out what's truly important to you, where your life is showing evidence of movement. We get to clear the fantasy, take it off a pedestal, and we get to reconnect with your authentic purpose, your vision, and your mission. And that's one of the reasons, like I said, why I love working with depression because we're really focused on your vision, your mission, your purpose, and integrating that into day to day life. So that one's really inspiring. Anxiety is also really cool, really inspiring. There's a couple things that could trigger it. Sometimes there's certain fears that can trigger anxiety. There's compound interest from past perceived traumas that can trigger anxiety. So, for example, if you go through a traumatic experience, which by the way is different for everyone, sometimes it's a big trauma that we can all label as a trauma, but maybe, you lost your house one time and it impacted your family and that was traumatic to you. There's different things that could be perceived as traumatic, but anything, a color, a scent, anything that reminds you of that today will trigger that anxiety mechanism as well. So with anxiety, we're kind of trying to find, like, we dive in, do some work, find that root cause. And once you clear the root cause, we can start to clear the root cause and the compound interest so that can also go away as well. And when I say go away too, I just want to make it clear to people because sometimes people will say, oh, like it's going to be permanently healed forever. There's no magic pill that gets rid of anything forever. Like I can clear a current level of anxiety, but I can't promise you you're never going to have a perceived trauma again. I mean,
Mm.
that's really unrealistic. I can't promise you you're never going to have a fantasy in which your life was different. Like that's really unrealistic. But having the tools and after you go through the processes and then like having the tools in the future to know how to do it again and understand it to a greater degree is just massively helpful so that the next time it comes up, it doesn't have to be as detrimental, impactful.
Yeah, and this is good. So, from what I understand about depression and the person who's experiencing it, they're really more focused on themselves. So, do you find that it helps if they just can get out of their selves? And maybe this is where
Mhm.
focusing on vision and purpose and everything else. If you can get out of yourself and see how this could impact someone else, and that could be a step to get somebody out of that
Mhm.
depression. What are your thoughts there?
Sometimes we wanna be a little cautious too, because I don't like to put it on like, "Oh, I want you to get out of this because it's impacting these people," because that could really, like that
Put more
could
pressure.
if you think about too, you're gonna have too much guilt and shame. You're just gonna build this guilt and shame for you being you, and now I got you beating yourself up while you're depressed, and I'm like, "Oh, man, quit beating yourself up." We all go through depression, it happens, and sometimes it lasts for short bursts, and sometimes it lasts for a long time. But really, the actual cause of it is in those moments that you're feeling depressed. And you ask yourself, what do I think my life should be like? What do I wish was different with my life, this person that I'm with? What do I wish was different that's actually not my reality? And that's what's making you depressed. Because if your reality isn't living up to whatever's inside your head, then you're going to be depressed. That's it. It makes you sad. But the truth is that your reality is far more magnificent than anything that you can make up in your head. Right. So that's why we want to cut the fantasy. We want to work on the fantasy and let go of it, help you let go of the attachment to the fantasy so that you can move on and really appreciate like the reality of your life. And the interesting thing too is sometimes, because I know people think of this and be like, I don't think it's a fantasy. Sometimes a part of it's a fantasy. The whole idea might not be a fantasy, which sometimes it is, but sometimes it's a part of the idea or pieces of the idea that are getting you stuck. I mean, this is a great one where it's like one of the things that keeps you stuck is those fantasies. So even if there's pieces of fantasies in those real goals, they can still keep you stuck because it's just
Yeah.
an unrealistic expectation on yourself or life or the world to behave the way you think it should instead of doing what it's meant to be doing.
So Ted, I want to bring you in on this because I mean you've seen all the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur. When it's great, it's the greatest thing ever. When it's not so great, I mean, what are some things that you do to protect your headspace and to keep yourself? Because like if I know I've known you for a while, I've never seen you in the dumps, and I'm sure you've had some times where you could have gone that way. So talk about like what do you
You
do to protect your headspace
you said you've never seen me what?
in the dumps?
Ah, I was just in the dumps before I got on this meet today, man. Been in the dumps all day. Oh man, no man, no. I don't know. For me, I'm just a relatively kind of positive kind of person. I'm a glass is half full kind of a person, right? And I try to, if I let myself, I also try to control kind of my emotions. I don't get too up, and I don't let myself get too down. I gotta always say like this. So people are always like, "Oh man, Ted, you never show any emotion or whatever. Aren't you excited? Aren't you excited about this meeting coming up?" Well, no. I mean, it's a great meeting coming up. We're preparing for it. But if I get myself all excited for the meeting and the meeting doesn't go well, then it's this major, you know, dump, right? So I kind of stay in this, middle place. And I just think it just kind of helps me to be able to think and process stuff when I just don't get too, you know, too tied to it emotionally, whether it's really good or it seems like it's the worst thing ever, right? Because as an entrepreneur, right, it all starts and ends with you, right, Carly? So if I'm all down in the dumps, then everybody else is gonna be all down in the dump, right? So you may not see it, right? But it doesn't mean I don't have my moments, right? But then by the time I come back out, I got to be like, okay, as a leader, I gotta kind of have it, I gotta kind of have it have it together to the best of my ability at that time. But I do have moments where it's just like, ah, like we put all this time into this and this didn't happen the way it was supposed to, or this key hire we thought was going to be rock star is not, right. And what are we going we're going as much as we went through to get him in here, how do we get him out of here? I mean, stuff happens. It happens, Carly. I mean, that's just the life of an entrepreneur. But yeah.
Interesting, Carly. Anything you wanted to add to that, or
Yeah, and just adding on to what you're saying, Ted, because yes, like when we get too excited about things, it's actually an emotional reaction response where we're too elated, too infatuated with an opportunity. And something you said in there, which I want to highlight, which you're exactly right. You get too high, you get too proud, you're going to get humbled and it's going to come back down. And so that's why you were saying, like, if I get too excited about a meeting, it goes bad, right? Because what winds up happening is when we get too high on something, we're only seeing one side. And so we wind up being unprepared, right? If we're only like, this is all good, this is amazing, this is great, you don't see any of the challenges that come with it. So you go in completely unprepared. And that's why it's wisdom to see both sides, balance our perceptions, which in turn balances our emotions. And that
Yeah.
also goes for the other side of the challenge as well. If we're only seeing something as overly challenging, right? Like something that's overly challenging, we're not seeing the other side of how it's actually serving us and helping our company to grow. With disorder comes order, and then with order is going to come disorder again, and order, disorder, order, disorder. But that's the very thing that helps a company to grow. Shows us our blind spots. It helps us to put in systems and strategies to be able to get to the next step. And you can't see everything all at once, especially when you're growing or scaling. And so it's like,
Hmm.
all right, well, let's keep going in. And where's their disorder? Let's create order, right? And then new disorder, order. And so if we keep seeking that one side and thinking we're not supposed to have those challenges, we're not actually seeing the gifts that they're giving us to help us grow. So ultimately, it's as you're saying, like with the perceptions and trying not to get too high and too low, that's us checking in. And what's really cool, it's actually a mathematical equation, right? This is really the cool thing about it. If we're excited about something, and if I'm 5 times more excited about it than I am, sad about it or, challenged about it, then guess what? That means I'm 5 times more. That's the 5 times elation, right? And so I want to go down until I feel I have zero of the positive perspective, zero negative perspective, where it's equal. Because even if I have 5 and I add -5 on the negative, guess what? I'm going to get to 0. And then I'm in a state of neutrality. My brain is, and I am. And the beautiful thing is now I have feedback of things that I can look for, challenges that I may have overlooked before, just by saying, well, what challenges come with this opportunity? And all of a sudden I'm grounded and I'm more prepared. It's really quite amazing what we can do with perceptions and literally utilize that in every area of life, especially business and finances. Yeah.
For sure. No,
So,
good stuff. So I am curious, like, Carly, how would you describe your ideal client? Who's your ideal client,
Mm.
and kind of walk us through how specifically you do help them?
Yeah, I love working with entrepreneurs, CEOs. Sometimes we'll work with like the C-suite teams. I say we because my husband and I, we do this together as well. Like we will coach separately, but we also have a business together. We'll dive in and help businesses to scale up. And then at the same time, we're working on the human behavior components with all of usually the top level executives and stuff. What we love to help them do is things stress you out. Life happens. We want to make sure that we're working on the things that are stressful in the business and outside of the business to ensure that every day you get to show up and make the impact that you're inspired to make. And also making sure that we're really clear on that because sometimes we start a business not to make an impact in the business, sometimes we start a business because, and so many times I have so many clients who do this who they want to create something for their kids, right? So part of that as well with those individuals, it's making sure that they're making the impact in the business, but also at home, right? And there's some people who want to make an impact in the business, the people that they're hiring. I had one client who was really quite inspiring, and he has a company in a third world country, but his goal was to help them have first world wages so that they could have like a first world lifestyle and feel something
mm,
different. And I was like, that's inspiring, right? I love helping people who love to help people genuinely genuinely love to help people who go to work and are inspired not just by, and I want them to want to make money too because I want you to get paid for your
yeah.
service you provide. That's really important. And I want you to provide more. Trust me, the more of an
Mm,
impact you want to make, the more money I want you to make so you can continue that impact. So it's, yeah, but if you actually want to make an impact on people and like you realize that the more service you provide, the more money you make, and that's inspiring to you, I want to help people do that more genuinely. So it's like whatever is getting in your way, it's like, let's just move it out, get it done, let you move forward because you're making a difference. And even when you own a business, you make a huge difference in people's lives, the people who work there, and then the product and services you provide. It's a great opportunity to create
mm,
impact. Yeah.
mm,
No, that's excellent. That's excellent. So here's, I'm almost embarrassed to admit this, Carly. Like when I first started coaching people, this is a mistake I would make. I would focus on just kind of the nuts and bolts of fixing the business, fixing their margins, helping them with marketing, helping them with recruiting and hiring, and I wouldn't really stop and address the mental issue or the mindset
mm,
or the limiting belief, and we just wouldn't go anywhere until finally, as soon as I hear now, like as soon as I hear a limiting belief, we got to stop right then. We have to address that for them to move forward. Talk about that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's funny, I started reverse. I started with the mindset stuff, but then I started to get into the business stuff. So I just remember so many times talking to executives and listening to how they were managing their days. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? Like, this person could have so much more free time. I'm like,
Yeah.
they don't need to be focused on this. Like they want to focus on like growing the company, scaling it, implementing these new divisions, and they can't because they're all bogged up. And I realized, so I started in reverse, but I realized how important what you were doing, Eric, was. Like it's so vital. And so that's when I decided I was like, I'm just gonna do both, right? I want to do both. I want to make sure that we get those wheels like kind of greased up so the business is running, but also get the wheels on the human greased up so the business is running. And the cool thing about it too is when I think about the mindset component in the personal development, Elon Musk is a great example. When we look at Elon Musk and his company, I remember when people were investing in his business like crazy, he had his balance sheets online and he was like in the negative. It was so bad.
Mm.
He's doing way
Wow.
better now, but I can read those sheets and I was like, whoa, financially, like this guy is not doing well. But I knew, and
Huh.
as we all knew, he's an inspiring guy. He's on a
Mm.
mission. So you're not invested in his bottom line. You're invested in Elon Musk, the visionary. And
Mm.
so giving the opportunity for executives and CEOs to actually put this into place and as an entrepreneur yourself too, because as you grow your business, when you connect with that vision, people are driven and inspired and they sign up for you and your mission. They want to support it. They want to help you grow it. The people who work for you and then the public as well. So it's really important to clear that noise, the judgments, the misperceptions that keep you stuck from actually accessing that part of you that not only drives the business but drives your life and drives other people to be inspired by what you do. And when people pull that out, man, that's amazing. When that guy told me about, what he wanted to do for individuals in the third world country, I just remember I got goosebumps everywhere and I was like, let's get you back on track right now. Yeah. And I was signed up, right? Because that's such an inspiring thing that someone's doing. So it's like that mindset component is so important because when you can understand that to such a degree in yourself, you can communicate it to your employees, the individuals you work with, the message that you're sharing with the world. Sony, the first owner of Sony, I don't know if you guys know this, but his mission statement was to create products. And pardon me, I'm not going to get this exactly correct, but it was to create products in such a way that Japan became known as the leading producer of electronics. And he did it. And you read that and you're like, whoa, his mission wasn't about a company, it's a country. That's something you want to sign up for. But that only comes when we work on ourselves to such a degree that we can pull that out of us. When we understand it, we can send that message to the world, and then we have other people inspired to help us get there along the way.
Mm.
Yeah, and that's these are great points, and I didn't know that about Elon Musk. That's interesting. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's a fun one.
but it sounds like he's brilliant at getting you enrolled in the vision and getting you to kind of see it and moving
Yeah.
forward from there.
Yeah, and he worked it out now, because, like I said, it was funny, I think this was, like, 8 or 9 years ago when I was looking at it online, 'cause it's, you could see it online, but he did work it out, but again, it's one of those things where it's like, you see as this man on a mission who literally nothing is gonna stop him, and I look at the balance sheet and I'm like, "Normally, you wouldn't invest in a company like this," but because of who is running it and the mission they're on, it's like, well,
Mm,
that makes sense. He's gonna figure it out no matter what, and he did.
mm,
Yeah, he's
yeah,
doing quite well. Last time I looked, I think it was like a couple years ago, he was doing quite well, so I imagine he's still doing well. Yeah.
yeah. I think that Elon guy turned out okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so let's get to this. The 5 habits that keep people feeling stuck. So let's start. Habit number one. What's habit number one that keeps people feeling stuck?
Yeah, we'll start by living by your shoulds, right? So if you
Hmm.
think about your day and you wake up and say, I should do this, I need to do this, I have to do this. If I broke down your day and I said, how many things that you thought you should or were supposed to do, did you get actually done? You're going to look at me and it's probably going to be little to none. And I'll be like, okay, when you look at the list of the things you got done for the day, the week, the month, Are those all the things that you said you wanted to do and you would love to do? And it's like, absolutely, yes. So if you try to live by your shoulds, that's the biggest place that you're going to procrastinate. Because a should is not according to you, it's according to someone else who you've perceived had a better idea in some way, shape, or form, who has done it better, and you've made them an authority in your conscious and unconscious mind, right? And so the should, supposed to, got to, have to, must, need to, ought to, that's actually indicating for you, this is great language to pay attention to, that it's not coming from you, right? And
Hmm.
I can't tell you how many times where I get people doing so many shoulds, where sometimes, you guys, it's just a matter of delegation, where they're like, I should do this and I should be doing that, and I'm not doing it. And then I ask, is that something that you can delegate? And they kind of look and like, yeah, why are you doing it? I thought I was supposed to. No, just delegate it. You're not doing it anyways, and you're just beating yourself up, right? So a lot of times it's delegation, and sometimes it's just dropping it. Sometimes it's actually not in alignment with who you are, where you want your company to go, your business, your vision. And sometimes it's dropping it and actually going the way that you would love to go instead. That one's a huge one. So when we think about things that are truly aligned with us that we'll do very quickly, it's love to, want to, choose to, desire to. So paying attention to that internal language is really key to make sure we're not procrastinating on the stuff we genuinely don't want to do. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one because typically we'll avoid the things we should do. Right? There's a lot of things I should do.
Not ours.
Right?
Well,
I
some things
Mhm.
that you need to get done are not your thing. Like I hate like paper stuff. Like that's just not like I will beat around the bush on filling out some forms or any type of like paper stuff. Like my thing is more kind of strategy, bringing people together. I like to paint, just
Yeah.
paint, just paint some thoughts and visions and look at the big picture. You get me down into doing the stuff in the weeds, I'm like, and it'll just keep getting put off.
Yes. That's where it's like, who can you either delegate to now or hire that loves to do that stuff? Yeah, that absolutely loves it. Like, when I tell you I was looking up the accounting stuff, I love accounting and I love numbers. So when I don't feel good, my husband laughs because I sit in the bed on my computer and he's like, "Are you doing accounting?" And I'm like, "Yes, I am," because I love it so much. So whenever I was in a company, no matter what I was doing, somehow they would throw accounting my way because I love it. But that's smart because you're delegating to someone who loves it. If you don't love it, it's like, find the person, find the me who's like, I want to do the accounting, and find that 1 cent mistake so bad, you know, who's not an entrepreneur. Find the me who's not an entrepreneur and wants a full time
right.
job. And then you find that person and you give them the opportunity to sit there and do all the things you hate. And the cool thing is like, then you're providing jobs to someone who loves doing what they do. And that's
That's
also
it.
fulfilling. That feels good.
That's
Yeah.
it. That's it.
Absolutely. Good. Now, great point. So the takeaway I get from this is don't should all over yourself. That's the takeaway I get from this. All right. Good. All right. So what's the next habit that keeps people stuck?
Yeah, so not prioritizing their days, right? So a
Mm,
lot of people wake up and they won't prioritize their days. And sometimes we genuinely have things that, come into place and that are surprises in our business, and we've got to put other things aside. But generally speaking, we can really prioritize our day every day. And how we want to do that is in the way with all the things that we love to, choose to, want to, desire to do, right? All those things that we would love to do, we want to make sure that we're investing time in them daily. So even if you own a business, you're an entrepreneur, and there's other things that light up your soul, right? It could be your family, could be your pets, could be surfing, could be hiking, any sort of physical activity. You want to make sure that somehow you're including that in your day to a certain degree as well. Because what that does is it really inspires you, and it is going to help you ensure that you're living in all of your values, everything that's truly important to you. Because if we try to take you'll get overwhelmed, you'll get burnout in your business if business isn't the main thing that's inspiring to you. You genuinely will. And what's funny, and I know everyone can think of this right now, is when you're doing something else you love, how many ideas and insights do you get on your business, right? How many ideas? Like, I love physical fitness, I love boxing, and it's funny, I'll go to boxing class, and even though I'm focused on the boxing, it's like a very meditative thing, and then all of a sudden I'm like, out of there, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna work on this because I had all these insights while I was boxing, right? So it's counterintuitive. So I could have stayed home and worked, but I never would have gotten the insights to the same degree because doing those things helped me to open up what's inside. So every day, it's like make sure you're prioritizing your day in such a way that it's doing things that are truly inspiring to you. And sometimes that's also learning. There's certain entrepreneurs, business owners. I think Bill Gates, he's like 4 to 6 hours a day he's reading and studying, and the same with Donald Trump. They just love learning, but that's part of their business day. That is part of their business day. And individuals at that level, like they're not able to do what they do without the education and the continuation of learning that they're pursuing. And so it's like you don't want to actually cut it. You want to figure out how to include it. And again, if you're not having the time, what's taking up your time that you don't need to be doing? Right. So that's really important as well, which I'm going to go over that one as a whole step for like getting stuck. But yeah, I break down my day hour by hour, sometimes every 30 minutes, just depending. And I wake up and I have like a list. I love using Things 3. That's my favorite. You can use your iPhone, you can use your calendar. One of my friends, he actually just has his assistant just print it out for him each time. And he likes to hold a physical piece of paper and puts it in his pocket, right? It's up to you how you want to track it, but I like to make sure that I'm looking at it and being like, these are the things that I want to prioritize. These are the things that I want to do. The other cool thing about this too is once you start prioritizing your day and really organizing it, you're going to get a really clear idea of how much you can accomplish and achieve, right?
Mm.
So, for example, you might put too much in a day and realize I really overestimated what I could do. And you'll cut it down a little bit day by day. And I know we've all done this before. But then sometimes you'll put stuff in there and it might be something new. And you're like, well, I really underestimated what I could do. I got a lot more time than I think. And so it's also getting used to you, getting to know yourself and how you can get things done and in what time frames, which in the future, by the way, this is all going to be locked in your subconscious. And the next time you plan something, a big goal in your business, maybe even starting a new business, your brain's going to come up with a number that's going to be way more realistic because you've been tracking your time and how long things take, and it's all in there. And
Mm.
you'll come up with a number, and then you'll hit it, and you're like, wow, I was pretty spot on. That's because you've been doing the work to see what you're actually like, to understand what you could do and can capable of. So that one's really important as well.
So it almost sounds like there needs to be like a work life integration where the things you enjoy doing in your life you should really be prioritizing and not just prioritizing your work tasks. Am I
Mhm.
hearing that?
Both, because sometimes the work tasks are a higher priority. And so
Hmm.
like one example is I have a friend and he loves his work so much, like he loves it. So he has a higher priority on work than I do for sure. Right? Not a good thing or a bad thing. You don't have to have that to have successful businesses. You can have the balance, but it's just utilizing it wisely. So for example, for him, he also really loves connection community. So he lives on a cruise ship, right? He actually lives on one of those cruise ships. So he gets to walk around, he gets to talk to a bunch of people at lunch. So he is really social, right? He's genuinely social, but he's doing it in the place that he lives. And that's perfect for him because then he can like maximize his time to a greater degree to focus on his business, right? So that's a really inspiring way for him to do it. Sometimes I have one client, he also is very social, loves social, loves connecting community and actually building communities. He's doing it through his business. He's building teams of salesmen, but he's highly involved in personal development and he's teaching them personal development. And so
Yeah.
here's someone who's doing all the things that they love within team building, personal development, and community building, but he's doing it in his own company. And so for him, if he woke up and said, like, I got to do the paperwork, I got to go focus on the taxes, he's miserable. I got to focus on the hiring. He's miserable. But it's like, okay, if I told him, what can you delegate to get all of that off your plate so you could just focus on showing up and building the team and scaling the business? He's like, yeah, I want to do that. Right. I want to do that. Okay, perfect. So when I say break down your day as well, it's like, what do you actually want to do in the business, the company? And then if it includes like part of the life balance as well, where you want to go home, where you want to connect in some way, shape, or form, go for that too. I love business, also love family. I work with my family. Like, it's also a bit of a strategy. I get to have my husband around for more often.
There you go.
And I see that comes with its own challenges, but every company that I've actually built on my own has been family included, because I just have such a high value on family. I love having them around. So again, I've just figured out really creative ways to keep working and have them with me.
Excellent. Good.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's next?
Yeah, so the next one we want to talk about is definitely delegation, because this can really slow you down, right? So when we think about delegation, it's again, we're going to pay attention to the shoulds. And if you're not delegating the things that you should be doing, you're going to slow yourself down because you're wasting your time focusing on things and tasks that actually are way below your pay grade, way below your pay grade. So if you broke down all of your daily tasks and you wrote them down and you looked at everything that you really hate doing, right? And you marked down how much you could actually delegate that to an individual to and how much you get paid to do it and the quantity of time, I'm going to guarantee you, you'll start adding that up on your little Excel sheet and be like, whoa, I'm wasting my time and I'm losing a lot of money. Because if you spend
Mm.
5 hours doing that paperwork, the stuff you don't want to do, as opposed to spending 5 hours doing the things that are inspiring to you, building that community, connecting with people, which get you the new sales, the new customers, all of a sudden you think about the finances that you're losing as a result of not delegating. And it's like, oh my gosh, why did I not do this before? Let me just get on it. A little stress in the beginning, sometimes a little stretch, sometimes not, but definitely worthwhile. So giving yourself the opportunity to move forward in that. And that's a big one too when it comes to mindset, because I know that sometimes it's really hard to let go of certain tasks. So there's going to be a mindset component and making sure things are systematized in such a way that when you do delegate, you can keep track of it so they stay on track. Yeah. Yeah.
That's the key. The systemization is the key. And just over the years, I've just become a bigger fan of like creating SOPs. So whatever the task is I've got a clear SOP. It's almost like McDonald's. You don't have to be a genius to work French fries because it's right there. It's
What
All
we do.
listed out. Yeah.
What we do.
it's all spelled out. So that's helped me over the years to get better with the whole delegation thing because now you've got the clear SOP. Everything is spelled out, and yeah, it's definitely. I think just that one right there can get you unstuck if you or somebody was hanging on to things and like me, that'd be me trying to do a bunch of administrative tasks just
Yeah.
myself. I'll just go crazy. Uh,
Yeah.
I just don't like doing it. Um,
Oh.
but yeah, so I try to get people who are really good at that and let them go to town. So yeah, but no, not delegating is it can definitely keep you stuck. So what's number 4?
Yeah, so number 4, we're gonna dive into our fears, right? So we'll kind of head over to the mindset section and we're gonna dive into our fears. So if we are scared of experiencing something or losing something, it'll actually stop us in our track, right? So, excuse me, for example, if we fear, there's 2 types of fear of loss and fear of gain, right? So we fear the loss of things that we admire, we infatuate with, we only see those positives on, right? Too much excitement. Because if we saw both sides, we wouldn't have to fear the loss of it to the same degree. Really, we wouldn't. So when we have something that we don't want to lose and we're so scared to lose, there's certain things that you're going to hold back on to move forward that will actually prevent you from moving forward. You're going to stay stuck and you're going to procrastinate on certain things. The other thing is the fear of gain. So things that we don't want to experience again, right? I was just working with an individual who had gone through a serious challenge, serious legal battle as a result when they expanded their company and they got really big. And so they've been stuck at a certain point in their company because they had a perception that when they get there again, that's going to happen. So we worked through the fears of what they were resenting. We balanced their perception so they could see the gifts behind the challenge, right? We want to help people see both sides. And then when he saw that, it's like, okay, can you go through that? And again, yeah, absolutely. I could definitely go through that again. It's not a nightmare anymore, just an event. I learned a lot from it. If it happens again, I can. And that's when they started moving again, right? So if we think, for example, even the loss component, if I think, if my business gets really big, my family's not going to talk to me anymore. And sometimes people genuinely feel this because they'll get feedback from, I've worked with another client who genuinely got feedback from a parent that if they were really wealthy, they would never talk to him again, right? And so they had a fear of actually building wealth. And then when we went back and you balance the perception, it was just like heated moment. It really was just a heated moment, but they were young, it got stuck in their head. And like again, once you clear it, because you're not scared of losing, the parent anymore, all of a sudden their wealth starts to skyrocket, right? They get out of the stuckness and they start to move. So fears can definitely be something that really hold us back. Yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned I call this a twiggable quote. You said it's not a nightmare, it's just an event.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Just an event. Yeah,
It's just an event.
that's how we know we have a balanced perspective. Just an event.
Yeah. Yeah. And you talk about fear. So I would do these workshops about overcoming procrastination, and I would have people break up into groups and talk about the biggest things that cause them to procrastinate. In every workshop I've ever done, somebody brings up fear without me bringing it up.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
I never bring it up. They always bring that up as a big thing. Like you mentioned, the fear of loss, the fear of gain. I think, yeah, definitely fear will hold you back from and keep you stuck for sure.
Yeah, it's a big one.
Absolutely. All right. What's number five?
Yeah, so number 5, we're gonna dive into the self-worth component, right? So that lack of belief in ourself. Now, a
Mm,
lack of belief in ourself, where we're looking at something and we're like, "I'm not that person, this is not me, like, I don't have this, so and so could do something like this, but I can't." And it doesn't matter what scale of a business you're on, doesn't matter what scale. You'll have that maybe at a smaller scale when you're, let's say, speaking, for example. When you first start speaking, you're like, "Oh, I'll never be able to speak in front of 5 people, right? I'll never be able to do a podcast." And then when you're on a bigger scale, you're like, "I'll never be able to speak in front of 100,000 people," right? So it's a different scale of that self-doubt that comes in. The reality of that is it's the self-doubt originates from a comparison. And the comparison is because we have a lack of certainty. We are lacking the certainty that we have this quality within us to actually move forward and make it happen. The real truth is you spot it, you got it. Anything that you admire in someone else, you have inside yourself. You're just too humble to see it, right?
mm,
So I like to use the example of athletes, right? Because I'm not an athlete by nature, right? I'm human behavior and I love business. So that's what I'm focused on. If I look at an athlete and I say, and I compare my body to theirs, right? Probably fit and toned and like super like just ripped, right? I don't look like that. I don't spend that kind of time on my body. And I could look at that and be like, they're so healthy. I should be healthy and I should look like that because that's the epitome of health. I have now put myself down and I've disowned that I actually have the thing that I admire on the outside within. I just have it in my own forms in my life purpose. So if I truly break that down into what I admire in athletes, I admire their ability to focus on something daily and master what they're doing. If I
mm-hmm,
look at my life, can I say that I focus on things daily and master what I'm doing? 100%. I do it in my speaking, I do it in my business, I do it in human behavior, I do it in my education, right? I'm doing it in all these different areas, do it in my relationship, right? I'm doing it in my form. The second I compare my form to someone else's and say theirs is better, I create self doubt. That's when you create self-doubt. And that's when I start to doubt myself and not have certainty in who I am anymore. So when you don't have the certainty in yourself, all of a sudden you don't do things. You just stop doing things because you genuinely don't think you can do it. So it's like, why even try? When you find out where you're comparing yourself to, which is going to be a ton of people, guys. By the way, it's like a ton of people. We do this all the time, like so many people. When you find those comparisons and you start to see that you have the very thing that you're admiring in them, you have certainty that you have that inside you, and that propels you forward. Because if you looked at all the people you admired and you had certainty that you had everything that you admired within them, what would be there to stop you? Nothing. Nothing. You know you can do it. So part of that as well is understanding that self-doubt is the lack of certainty because you have these disowned parts in yourself, right? And it's just disowned. They're not present. You just forgot you have them and you can't see them because you're blinded with that one-sided perception. So that's where, the mindset component again is really huge and really helpful in getting individuals to sort of just like get to that other side when they're feeling really stuck and stagnant.
yeah, that's a great point. I mean, one of the things about self worth is you'll never outperform your self worth. Like if you don't, like I think even if you get to the point where you get a big contract, right? Let's say you get a $10 million contract for your business, but you only see yourself as a $1 million business, so you're not worthy of more than that. Eventually, you'll sabotage yourself to the point where the business goes back down to that level.
Hmm.
Yeah, and the other thing you mentioned, the athletes. If you look at the the people who are the best in the world at what they do, people like I'm watching Olympic trials, the guy who's the fastest at the 100 meters, they have a certain attitude. Like they literally believe they're the best in the world. They're going to win. It may turn some people off, but I think that's what's got them to that point.
Yeah, they have
They
that
got their belief.
certainty.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say they have that certainty in themselves. And on the back end, every day they're still working on it. And this
Yes.
is like the key as well. It was a friend of mine just moved in down the street not too long ago. So it's a super cool couple. But it was funny because I was talking to him and he's restarting a real estate business. And I'm listening to him and what he's gone through and how like a bunch of stuff failed when the mortgages changed and COVID hit. And he's just rebuilding it and he's starting from scratch. And he's still on the back end while everything is failing and everything's not working, he's still working on his business. He's still growing himself. Years he's been doing it without a result. I looked at him and I was like, oh my God, you're going to be fine. I was like, you're 100% going to be fine. Because while all of his competition stopped, they stop when things don't go well. He keeps moving and he keeps getting innovative and he keeps finding new ways and it's showing evidence in his life that it's working. Right? So that's the other dynamic as well. Is like when you look at people who have done great things and you see them for a moment, they're not doing it a moment in time. All day every day, guys, like we're focused on this dynamic. We're focused on all these things, or else we wouldn't be able to show up every day doing the things that we love. So also on the back end, it's remember, don't just do it on the front end. Make sure every day this is where you want to invest in what's important to you and write that down and schedule it in. Because the more that you're doing it, that's the one thing I learned about entrepreneurship is you want to be the best at what you do and you love it and it's amazing. And at the same time, part of being the best is just staying dedicated to carrying on no matter what occurs and just reframing, rebooting, sometimes reorganizing, restructuring, and coming back in because that's going to separate you from the person that closes their doors because they just say it doesn't work anymore to the person that innovates and finds the way to have it work, right? Listen to the people, listen to your consumers, create new products, services. You change with the world. It's changing on a regular basis. So is that athlete mentality as well. Every day, let's practice and keep going. And then when it's game time, guess who's at the front of the line? You'll be.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Like I even think about, and Ted, you chime in here. I think about Tom Brady, right? They're in the Super Bowl. They're down 28-3, and nobody comes back from a 28-3 deficit. But in his mind, the whole time, he's certain. He's just like, we're gonna do this. You see him on the sideline. Come on, let's go. Come on, let's go. And most people don't have that level of certainty, and it just shows you the power of you know having that self worth and being certain and having
Yeah.
that level of belief and how that can move your results.
It's a beautiful example.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely in your mind. That mindset has to be there. Like that example that you use there for Tom Brady. It's funny. I was talking to a friend and he just knew how much of a Tom Brady fan I was. Not necessarily a Patriots fan, but a Tom Brady fan, just for that reason, right? And so he called me that game. It's like, oh yeah, they got him. They got him this time. I'm like, yeah, okay. And then they scored, and next thing you know, it was like, they had like 10. And he just kept trying to say, my friend kept calling, he kept texting me. He kept texting me, yeah, they've got him. They got him. The next thing you know, they had 17. And the next thing you know, he's texting me like, they don't have them. It was the funniest thing. He sent me this meme. The guy's banging his head against the wall. And I was like, I'm sure there was a bunch of Falcons fans that felt the same way. But it's, Tom Brady had that mindset. And I think that as long as he still believed it, his team believed it. Like he willed them to do it. And you also notice like when you do that eventually, it's funny like how like momentum works. Like because then some things start to happen. Next thing you know, they're getting every call, they're getting every fumble, like everything is happening. And then people are like, oh, this must be fixed. And it's like, no, I guess once that thing turns in any sport, anything, you see like once it starts to turn, then just the balls just start bouncing your way. So you can just keep yourself focused and believing and not break down.
Yeah. That's amazing too, because I love that you brought about like the example of how it compounds.
Yeah.
It's like compound interest in a bank. You know, if any of you guys have ever looked at investing, when we reinvest our compound interest, and then over the years, you just think, wow, what an amazing investment and how much money you can make. That's our day. Our whole day, our whole life is compound interest. It's like the more that every day you're spending just a little bit of time on the things that you would love to accomplish and achieve, that compound interest just starts building in the back end. And I cannot stress this enough, because sometimes people tell me they're not ready or this or that. I don't actually care. Just start small. Start small. Start small on anything that you like really would love to do, that you're like, this I really want to do. Start small. Start with the smallest little steps, and then the compound interest keeps building. And
That's
as you
great
said, it's
advice.
like yeah, like snowballs, you know? And so if you're not working on all this stuff right away, because gosh, we talk about so much, and I know that you guys are talking about so much more on a weekly basis. If you can't implement it all right away, it's like, where can you start today that's small, just to start building that compound interest on whatever it may be that you would love to do, continue to do, grow, create. Yeah, it's huge.
Absolutely. Start with the small steps. They count for
Yeah.
sure. All right. Well, good. So we've talked about the 5 habits that'll keep you feeling stuck. Living by your shoulds. We say it was number one. Not prioritizing. We talked about not delegating, being overcome with fear, and then having a low self worth and playing that whole comparison game. So definitely, I think we help some people to get unstuck so they can get to their next level. So I am curious of one thing, Carly. I know you get asked a lot of questions from different people in different settings. I'm curious, like what's one question that you never get asked that you wish people would ask you?
It's a question I never get asked that I wish people would ask me. You guys ask so many fun questions, by the way. Like, I love the surprise questions I get. And I'm like, this one's a new one. Okay. It's a question that nobody's asked yet. People, they don't ask me about pride. They just don't, because we're taught in society to not have shame and to have pride, right? But what we're not taught about pride is that too much pride makes us have this super ego. We're puffed up. And that is when we have the crash and burn. That's when we
Mhm.
attract humbling circumstances to cut us back down to size. Because the reality is you're not better than anyone, but you're also not worse than anyone, right? We're not better or worse than anyone. When we get too proud, we get really puffed up and we just think we're better than everyone. Well, guess what
Mhm.
happens? You get humbling circumstances to level out the playing field. The more that you can catch that persona coming up, which is far trickier because society likes to be proud. They like to be puffed up. We've also been taught that that's the way we're supposed to be. And so it's harder to catch. But when you can catch yourself getting too puffed up, it's kind of like step it down a notch. Remember who you are, humble yourself to know that as much as you've grown, there's so much more to grow. As much as you know, gosh, there's so much more to learn, right? Anything that you're accomplished in, there's so much more to learn in any area of life. And so if we get too puffed up, it's like that's a really great thing to catch, because the greater degree of pride, the greater degree of tragedy that you encounter. I met a guy once, he got in 3 plane crashes, which is huge, by the way. And each plane crash that he got in, each time they were celebrating, incredibly elated, really puffed up, popping champagne bottles on an airplane, going crazy about what they just achieved. So, and then they attracted 3 tragic circumstances, right? So that's an extreme example to give you guys, where it's like the higher the pride, the higher you're elated, the more you're going to attract that. And if you work out, athletes and stuff, you see it when they get really proud, puffed up on the field, anywhere when they're doing sports, they actually create injuries as the balance to like balance out that persona. They get humbled. So important. But we don't get asked because we're taught like we're supposed to be proud, but we're meant to be us, authentic. And in that authentic state, you're inspiring, and you don't need to be proud. You're just
Yeah.
inspiring and you're certain. And trust me, that feels so much better than being proud. And it's way easier.
No, I don't think there's anything wrong with being, I guess, proud of your achievements. It's just that whole thing of, remaining humble, right?
Yes.
And because
Balance.
just like that example that you just gave, like I was like, oh, yeah, I,
Yeah.
I'll be doing more praying than anything, because that'd be
All
three
it would take is one
planes.
plane crash for me.
That's it. So I'm telling you
What?
that's someone I'm not traveling with. That's someone I'm not
He's good
traveling with.
now. He's
Yeah.
figured that out, so he doesn't know any
Oh,
plane crashes anymore.
oh
Uh,
man, that is it. But yeah, I think you just, just you can be, like I said, you can be proud of your accomplishments, but
mhm,
never, it's always good to give some credit to others, right? Other than yourself, your team, your family, you know, belief in God. I mean, so you know, someone other than yourself, because you couldn't do it all yourself. Okay,
100%. Yeah,
how great, how great you think you are. I mean, there's other people that practice hard, right? There's other people that have been doing this for years. There's other people that are passionate about it, and so yeah, you just need to, like you said, not get too much, oh, puffed up. I think that's the perfect word.
yeah, puffed up. Yeah.
Mhm.
No, this is good stuff. Yeah. So we're at the final segment, and by the way, Carly, this is Ted's favorite part of the show.
Oh,
It's
I
called
cannot
"Write
stand.
This
I cannot.
Down."
I cannot stand this part, Carly. If
Ted
I
was like,
could, if I could end this part, but you just won't let me. You just won't let me rid myself of trying to, just trying to figure out something to follow the guest, who is just like on a roll. Like the guest has been like on this all day, so then I gotta. Yeah, I don't really like it. I don't really like
All right, so Carly,
I
this
love
is
it.
the part of the show where we each go around and we talk about at least one takeaway from today's segment that the people need to write down so they can level up. So, Carly, you're the guest of the hour, the guest of honor. What do the people need to write down from this episode?
Write down the things that you would love to have certainty in that would give you permission to do what you would love in life. And then go find the people who are doing it and see it in yourself. Yeah. And then send me a message because I want to know. Yeah. Uh,
Write it down. There you go. Oh, that's excellent. Thank you
it.
for sharing. All right, Ted.
What I really got out of all of this is, when we first, started the show talking about, like taking your business to the next level. And, and it's interesting, recently, where Eric and I was looking at something on LinkedIn, and it was a business owner that was having some like amazing success. And then we were just kind of talking between each other, like, oh, what is this person doing? We got to figure out what they're doing. And, and I was just thinking to myself, and kind of shared with him, and then I even shared with certain members of my team today, that, you know, I just don't think there's anything that's really all that different. I think we're doing the right stuff. I just think that, you know, it's just continuing to stay in the game, execute, you know, lessons learned, like you said, and then not just lessons learned, but then just continuous learning as well, right? So it's all these different things. I don't think it's any one thing that takes you from this level to that level, right? But you do have to stop, right? Because just like this list of things that you just talked about, like these are like some kind of stop and and assess, right? Like really where you are, and I would say assess and then come up with a strategy and then execute it. Right. So these 5 items you gave were some things to really help you to assess like where you are, and then where you're trying to go. So yeah, that's what I got out of most of this conversation.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So my thing for write this down kind of goes back to that you were talking about, Carly. This idea of just comparisons, and I think you can compare, but I think you should. It's not in an unhealthy way, right? If someone's getting a specific result that you want, I think you should look for a model. I just believe, like I look at somebody like Oprah Winfrey, right? Oprah's a billionaire. We all know Oprah, but I just believe in my heart that if Oprah and I, if we plant the same seeds in the same soil and we water it the same way, we'll get the same harvest. It's just the way it works. So I just think you can. There's certain things. So I don't have an unhealthy comparison. It's like if somebody, oh man, this person has 10 million views on their video. I'm thinking, okay, well, what's their process for posting? How often are they posting? Are they, is there a theme? Is there a way they're doing it? Is there so? 'Cause I think, well, if they can do it, so can I. It's just, what's their process? What's their strategy? And I think that's a better way to look at comparisons as opposed to, man, this person's doing this and I should be much farther along, and I'm not as good as them, and all of that. So I just think you have to have the right perspective on comparison, because if you don't, that'll definitely hold you back, keep you from really being great. So write that
Beautiful, guys.
down.
Yeah.
So one thing we didn't talk about, I want to go back to, is this Carly the boxer. Like
Oh,
you just kind of went through that, just kind of like, yeah, I just box. I mean, just like boxing, like working out, or just like, you like an amateur boxer and you're out there actually going
right
in the ring.
now, yeah, right now it's just boxing and working out, but I found an amazing teacher where I live, and 100% they're making me do stuff I'm very uncomfortable with. I have certainty they're gonna make me, like, get in the ring one day, and also every time I think about it, I'm like, "This is really good for me. This is making me face stuff that is uncomfortable, my reflexes, like, paying attention, like, getting in those meditative moments, like, focus." And so I find a lot of value in not all, like, sports and not all teachers, but him in particular, and so I get so much value. So, yeah, one day sometimes he has me go in the ring and, like, spar with, some of the guys just to sort of push them a little bit, and they'll do stuff with me, and they're careful. They're very careful with me, by the way, but at the same time, they're excellent at teaching me. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it one day, and also very nervous to have a nice balanced perspective on it. Yeah, definitely both. So one day if I'm on a podcast and I have a black eye, I tried.
Or
I was like, I
or
finally tried.
look, or you don't, and the other person does have the black eye.
Yeah, yeah. Then you won't. Then you might not hear about it.
You should have seen the other guy.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. You should see the
It's
other.
interesting. I had a business associate, and she was into martial arts, like her whole family was, and I knew that, and she had talked about that. And one day I saw her at this conference, and she had like a black eye, and she looked at me. I was like, "Man, what happened?" She said, "Yeah, we had to, I guess, do whatever we had to do to move up in our next, I guess, our next class or whatever." I was like, "Wow." I was like, "Who did that?" She's like, "My dad." Like I had to fight my dad. She's like,
Wow.
"Dad blacked your eye?" I was thinking, man, note to self, don't mess with her, because if he do it,
Yeah,
if he what's he gonna do to you? I said,
yeah. Her
man,
or her family. Don't mess
that's
with her
right.
or her
That's a
family.
tough that's a tough family with everybody fighting each other. But yeah, that was
Oh,
crazy.
that's amazing.
Oh man. Wow.
Crazy. It was Eric, it was crazy. I was black away.
Yeah,
My dad. I was like,
what a story as well.
he didn't even take it easy on you. It's like he just really like
Yeah,
put it
he
on
wants her
you.
to learn. He's like, "You're gonna learn. You're gonna defend yourself, or."
That's right. That's right.
He's like, should have
That's
kept your
right.
hands up.
Right,
Yeah,
right,
tough love.
right.
Wow. I said, protect yourself at all times. Hey,
Takes
weren't
up
you
at all
listening?
time.
Yes.
That's it.
Wow. Okay. So Carly, so how can the people connect with you? What's the best way for people to connect with you?
Definitely my website, which is carlypepin.com, and then you can either contact me directly there or, go to your favorite social media channel, your choice.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing
Thank
everything
you,
you
Carl.
shared.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I mean
thank
that.
you guys. This was inspiring.
Yeah. This is critical information that people need to embrace, because we're at the halfway point of the year, and people have set goals. So hopefully this gives people that restart and that kick to get
Mhm.
unstuck and take it to the next level.
Yeah,
So
that's
and those of you
amazing.
that are watching, don't forget to share the
Share the
show.
show. Share the show. Share
And
the
if you're
show.
listening, you can share the show too. That's right. Yeah. And don't forget that you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We've got over 1.2 million downloads on those podcasting platforms. You can find us there. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and that way you never miss another episode. But that's our time for this week on the 30 Minute Hour podcast. And until next time, have a great one.